I think that's a lot of the biggest issues, I think, when it comes to mental health, is that men, and I only can speak for a man because I'm only a man, but I'm sure that also on the women's side, but men, and especially men and that are alphas that lead their families, they don't have these outlets, right? They don't have, and that's why you also see, suicides with happy actors and athletes who overdose on drugs, because you're thinking like everything is all good, but behind the surface, no one wanted to really ask, hey, Wale, what's going on in your life? Like, are you okay?
I made it through the rough time. I made it through the tough time. I made it through the bad time. So now I gotta get mine. Gotta weather the storm. Gotta get mine. Gotta weather the storm. I gotta get mine. Gotta weather the storm. Okay. One day we gon' get on. Talk to 'em. You ain't got a choice.
Welcome to Bailey and Buck Unplugged, where we talk about sports, entertainment, and mental health in support of the Kennedy Kids Foundation. If you're struggling with mental health, we encourage you to speak up and get help. A great place to start is 988. That's the free crisis prevention lifeline. Or you can check out the resources tab at kennedykids.org. If you are in an absolute emergency, please dial 911. Either way, we want you to know that you are not alone and that you don't have to struggle, and speak up, get help. There are resources available to you, and we are here to support you. If you're new around here, I want to introduce you to our host. I am Misty Buck. I am an author and a mental health and performance coach. And my co-hosts are Robert Bailey. He is the president of Rosenhaus Sports, the president of Kennedy Kids Foundation. He's a two-time Super Bowl champion, two-time college national champion. He's an NFL record holder, and he's an ESPY winner. And we are also joined by Bailey Brooks Mashburn. She is a celebrity wedding and event planner, a former NFL cheerleader, and the executive director of the Kennedy Kids Foundation.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Bailey and Buck Unplugged, where we dive deep into the stories behind the athletes, entertainers, and the change makers who are shaping the conversation around mental health and resilience. Today, we are incredibly honored to be joined by someone who embodies strength, purpose, and transformation, Adewale Ogunleye. Now, you may know him as the fierce defensive end who dominated the NFL for over a decade, playing for teams like the Miami Dolphins and the Chicago Bears, but his impact goes far beyond the gridiron. Since retiring from professional football, Adewale has continued to lead with intention, earning an MBA, championing wellness and financial literacy, and advocating for holistic success both on and off the field. He brings a powerful perspective, on identity transition and the importance of mental health, especially in the lives of young athletes. Wale, we are so excited to have you here with us today. Welcome to the show.
Oh man, Bailey, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're so welcome. I feel so honored today to have my two favorite NFL players ever and besties for life join me on the show. It's such a cool concept that Robert came up with. And for those of you listening that don't know, I actually met Wale and Robert at the same time in 2003. So they have been some of my best two partners for the last 20 years. Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
Does that mean we're getting old? Can I say that or what?
Yeah, you can say it. I don't blame you.
Getting old, man. We're getting old.
Getting old.
You guys used to be the dynamic duo out there in the streets every time I ran into you, but it was such an awesome pairing to run into. So, Wale, the first question we always start the show off with is asking our guests to share with us the time in their lives where they were most challenged by mental health. Do you mind sharing that with us today?
Yeah, I think for me, probably would be as I transitioned out of the NFL, right? That was the first time where, for a lot of athletes, that's our identity, right? Everyone looks at us and can say, this is what your objective in life is to do, is to entertain, is to perform on the field. And as that realization came where I wasn't going to sign with another team, there was a place where, you go mentally, like, what's next, right? And you have, for a lot of reasons, a feeling of an imposter, right? Like, I've been this big alpha male for the last, somewhat decades, since I've been playing in high school and in college and now professionally. And I've made it to every single, top of every single place that I've played. And now it's like, what's next? And you start to feel like, I'm not able to jump back into society. Um, you don't know really truly who was really around you because you played sports, or who really loved you, and who really were your friends and family. So a lot of those kind of voices kind of start seeping into your mind, and they play tricks with you, right? And this is where you see, for a lot of people, at this part in junction in their careers, is where they turn to, destructive behaviors. You see a lot of divorce happening for guys who are married. You see a lot of chemical dependency happening with guys that once they start retiring, because they don't know where to turn those outlets to. So for me, to answer your question, I know I kind of rambled a bit, but for me to answer your question, it was when I realized that my playing career was done.
What
So,
about Wale? What about
but what did
when?
you do before you skip to the next thing, Robert? I'm sorry to cut you off. I just want to finish this question.
No,
What
go
did you
ahead.
do though? Like, so then what did you do? Like, how did you not become chemically dependent, not get divorced, not go through severe depression? Like, what did you do and how did you do it?
What's good for me was I stayed busy, right? I kept routine of getting up and jumping on planes and having meetings and kind of connecting with all of the people that, while I played, wanted to get a piece of me, right? They wanted to sit down and have dinner. I was really good at taking business cards from people and listening. And Robert, actually, I mean, he was really great at, basically teaching me that part of knowing that eventually it is going to end. But these people that want to be around you from a business side, or people that you probably want to stay in touch with for the rest of your life. So what I did was, I would call those people and just, shoot the breeze with them and let them know that I'm transitioning and I'm still trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. I went back to school and got my MBA, like you said earlier in intro, and I kind of wanted to understand my finances a little bit better. And those kind of things led to me finding out what the next step. I thought possibly I could work in the front office of an NFL team. I actually spent a couple weeks interning with the Miami Dolphins. And again, my thought process was, let me just start doing the work. I'm not sure where it's going to lead me, but I know that I am a workhorse. I know that I need objectives and goals. So getting up every morning and calling people, learning about my finances, getting my MBA, and then doing that short stint with the Miami Dolphins kind of kept me out of reaching to a dark place where I didn't know how to fill that void. I filled those voids with those three little things that I was talking about, and I got married. That definitely put put my life in perspective. And I think for a lot of guys that are married and then retire, it's a little bit different. So for me, I was a single bachelor. I enjoyed life. You know what I mean? Like, I had a good time. I got it out my system, and then when I retired, I got married. So all those different things kind of helped me distract me from the void of losing the game that I love playing.
That's amazing. So what is it that you're doing now? Like, what did you figure out from all of that and like making the connections and like really taking the time to like learn who you were going to be next in this next phase of your life? Where did you end up?
Yeah. So so all those different things that I talked about, that I transitioned as I left the NFL, I realized that I have a heart of giving, right? And when I got to the NBA, I realized that a lot of athletes, when it comes to their finances, one, don't understand the jargon that financial advisors speak in. Number two, we tend to relate to people who can speak our language. The person that might look like us a little bit, but is able to at least have some sense around their finances. And I think for athletes too, we're led a little bit by the locker room, right? I thought the guy that had the Lamborghini in the locker room was good with his money. I thought that the guy that had the big mansion in Weston was excellent with his money. But end of the day, a lot of those guys were living check to check. And for me, I felt like this opportunity, this education that I have, it was my obligation to kind of share that with my colleagues, with my friends, my families, and people in my ecosystem, but then also the athletes and entertainers that were coming up, next generation. So after I got done with going to school, I did that internship that I had with the Dolphins, and in that program, I was working with the rookies and helping them, kind of transition from college to pros. And they had the Dolphins have a really good program when it dealt with the player development. It was a guy, I think it was Caleb Thornhill was leading that
Yeah.
process at the time, and he's really
Great
good
guy.
really good, amazing at what he does. And I just realized like maybe this direction of being eventually like a general manager or president of an NFL team, which we can talk about later. That's still, in the back of my mind. One day I would love to maybe still go down that route. But what I realized that at the time, I didn't have the time to sit around and be in a Dolphins facility. They're damn near there 24 hours a day.
Right.
I didn't feel like doing that. Funny story about that before I go. My first day there, they had me get coffee for guys. I'm like, I'm a Pro Bowl player with the Miami Dolphins. They got me getting coffee, and I'm driving the
Right.
rookies around, right? Like my ego was a little bruised the first couple of days I was there, but oh man, it was crazy. But the president told me, which was a great thing that I learned later on, that there was a GM who told me at the time, I wanted you to see every single job that is in the building. So it wasn't about demeaning you. It was about, if you really want this job, you need to know what the janitor has to do. You need to know what the gentleman that picks up our rookies have to do. So it was a great experience for me. But at the end of the day, I had recently gotten married, and I didn't want to be, away from my house, damn near 24 hours a day. So I bumped into the head of private wealth at UBS, this guy named John Matthews. And John wanted me to become a financial advisor. He said, listen, one, there's not a lot of young Black males in the finance industry. Would love to have you come on board and doing that. But two, your background and your willingness to teach and to give back is something that at the time UBS felt like really was aligned with their goals and how they wanted to treat their clients. I didn't want to be an advisor. I didn't want to feel like I had to go out there and pound the pavement like, the world class that Robert Bailey is as an agent, and have to constantly, like Robert, I love him, but he's got to deal with 100 different personalities. He's got to keep his mouth shut at most of the time when there's knuckleheads then. And I didn't have the patience that Rob has, right? I would call Rob sometimes screaming at him about something that he had no control over, but it was his job to calm me down.
Yeah.
And because I knew how terrible of a client I was to Rob, I'm like, I don't want to be a financial advisor because I don't want to get the Wales of the world coming as my client. So,
but you still do, Wale.
Yeah, I get it.
Wale, you still deal with clients.
Yeah, I do, and I think. But the thing is, when I met you, you probably had a full head of hair, and I probably the fact that you're bald now, right? So, in my role, I told the firm that I would love to help the firm understand exactly why a guy like Robert wants to take care of his mother for the rest of her life, why a guy like Wale wants to go back to Nigeria and drill for fresh drinking water in his parents' village in Nigeria. Why does Susie in Iowa, I don't know why Susie has to be from Iowa, but I don't know why Susie in Iowa wants to buy her dad an F-150, right? But again, I wanted to make sure that the finance industry understood who our athletes were, understood why they do the things that they do, and not look at our community of like as a posse or like hanger-oners. This is our community. These are people we love. These are people we trust. And in the world of sports, trust really goes a long way. And athletes are extremely loyal. And I wanted to help the firm because one, we have 1 out of every 2 billionaires banks at UBS. And one of the things that I didn't like about when I played for the Dolphins, I didn't know where Wayne Huizenga banked. I didn't have those conversations when he was owner of AutoNation and are we there?
And Wasteology.
Oh, sorry. My thing went off. And let me do it again. I didn't know. Ready?
Yeah.
Sorry. So one thing that I didn't like most when I played for the Dolphins is I didn't know when Wayne Huizenga was uh, where he banked, and he's the owner of Waste Management and a Blockbuster and of Auto Nation and all these different things, and he's the owner of the Marlins, and no one's telling me where he's banking, and he's banking at institutions like UBS. And I
Right.
wanted to make sure that athletes understood that we can stay away from the mom and pops, right? We stay away from the guys that know, like my mom or dad say, I know a guy that knows a guy. Really wanted to have a place where athletes can go and talk to, where their reputation meets the reputation of the athletes and the reputation of the firm, where it's equal, where like the firm has just as much to lose as the athletes from a reputational standpoint. And then two, someone that is looking over the shoulder of our financial advisors. And my role, I do work with clients very closely. But at the end of the day, my goal is not to say, hey, I want UBS to be the place where you bank. I want it to be that if you do walk through our doors, you're in the right place, and you're going to be protected and taken care of. Not only because the firm is amazing at what they do and the checks and balances, but because we're the only institution on, I think, the planet that has a guy who was a former NFL player for 11 years, played at the height that I've played, but now running the whole sports and entertainment division, and is not officially a financial advisor. Yes, I have my licenses. I can give advice on finances, but I think I'm more powerful and more useful on the management side, where I'm seeing the bigger picture of which direction our firm wants to go as dealing with athletes and entertainers. So again, you asked the question on what did I do to move from that transition from the NFL and staying out of the bad places where your mind can go. I stayed extremely busy, and I last 8-7 years been doing this job extremely well at UBS, so it's been fun.
So
I
it is
congratulate you.
crazy. Yeah,
You've been
congratulations. We find out a lot
Yeah,
players that a lot of mental health issues stem from the lack of financial knowledge and resources. And it's one of the things that when we're interviewing people that a lot of people talk about, is that they had no idea about the finances and the large incoming contracts and whatnot. That's super relevant.
I want to take you back, just earlier on in your career. You've been through a lot. And one of the things that you've been through that 90% plus athletes have been through is injuries. At one point in your career, right, trying to get to the NFL, and that was, in college as a football player, that's all of our goals, to get to the NFL. And you had a knee injury that really set you back, that really put you in a position where maybe your NFL goal wasn't going to happen. And you were a great player. You were a guy that had a lot of potential. Went to University of Indiana, and was a guy that was destined to be a good player in the NFL, but had a knee injury. How was that, handling that particular time in your life, having this knee injury? Because a lot of athletes out there that will be watching this will eventually have some sort of injury. We all do. How did you stay mentally in a place to where you can overcome that and not let that injury take you out mentally?
Man, it's so crazy you bring that up, because that was actually a tough time for me also, right?
Yeah, I thought you were going to actually name that time.
Yeah, that was
I had a different one.
Well, we're all family here, so we all know, everywhere I go. But I think the reason why the NFL, leaving NFL, hurt so much for me is because I always knew I was going to still make it, right? Even with the injury, right? So,
and that actually made you fall in the draft. So
yeah,
there was a lot there going on for you, man.
Yeah. So,
as a young man.
So the fact of the matter, for the injury, what hurt the most was I could have entered the draft my junior year. Mel Kiper, and I get a grade of a late first round pick. Mel Kiper, my coach finds a way to get me to speak to Mel Kiper and teams. And he says, listen, if you stay, I think you're going to be a top 10 the next year. And not only that, he comes out with his the first mock draft of his, of his magazine at the time. He had me number 1 coming out, like the first pick of the draft, right? So at that time, this is when I think we didn't have rookie salary caps. So guys were making life-changing, amounts if you got drafted in the top 10. So I was big man on campus. I had graduated already. And I enjoyed my time in Indiana. Like, I loved it. We didn't go to a bowl. And I convinced myself that I wanted to finish what I started at Indiana. I wanted to find a way to get this team to a bowl game. We had a young, up-and-coming quarterback named of Antoine Randall, who I think, if we would have won, he's a Heisman Trophy type player. And I also thought that, I've never been hurt before in my life. I don't even think I even sprained an ankle before. So the injury didn't even pop in my mind. And obviously, I'm having the best year of my life, my senior year. Like, I was a 3-time All Big Ten. And even my senior year, I'm having the best year already. Like, I'm killing it. So whatever they thought before, I'm living up to the hype, right? Leading the Big Ten in sacks at that time. Then I blow my knee out. Turn my ACL, MCL, PCL. Then in surgery, I get a staph infection. So I can't rehab. I can't do anything for almost a year.
Wow.
Draft day comes, and I get a call from, I think it's the New York Jets. And the New York Jets are like, hey, we're thinking about you. This is like second round. First round already passed. And this is where my agent at the time was telling me, like, we think you're going to go second round. And then I get a call a little bit later. The Jets call and say, hey, listen, if we don't draft you, think about signing with us as a free agent. This is the second round.
Wow.
I'm like, what are you talking about? This is second. Like, okay, you guys are not going to. Someone's going to draft me. So I go to next. 5 rounds, and nobody picks me. Even my local paper in Staten Island, New York, was there. I had family members there. It was really a downtime for me. So to answer your question, the reason how I got through it was, one, I always knew I was going to come back from it. I always knew. I just my family is a super educated family. I think what also helped me was they're not big sports fans. So they were like, you got your degree. We're okay.
They didn't care about the NFL.
Pressure on me. So I knew what I was doing was for myself. I didn't have the pressure of trying to make my dad happy to make it to the NFL or make my mom happy to make it. I wanted to go to the NFL because now this was my personal dream. And nothing was going to hold me back from that. So I didn't have time to be depressed, bro. Like, I had to get back to my grind. I had to hurry up and try to look in good shape for the combine. Once the combine came, I couldn't participate. Then I'm still trying to look good in the sense of, upper body, do my
visually. Visually.
And then the draft comes. And then once the draft comes, what can I do? There's OTAs and rookie money. So it's quick. I didn't have time to be sorry for myself. I just knew that I was better than the guys that I was playing with, but I just needed to get healthy, and I needed time to prove it. And that's what I was able to do those next 5 years with the Dolphins.
Wow. So really, your family actually helped you with your mental health without even knowing that they, by not giving you that pressure.
Absolutely. And I would say this for everyone. I think family and for all of us who have family, we've got to be cognizant of how we treat each other, how we treat people within our inner circle, because at the end of the day, we always have the mentality, it's us versus them. And as long as the people inside our house are taken care of, and you're taking care of each other, we can get through anything. And for my family, the things that matter to them helped me get through the outside voices that say, hey, you're going to be a big superstar, or hey, you should be buying your mom a house. And the same people that, work with my mom in her job used to tell her, like, wait, when I was playing with the Dolphins and I signed a big contract with the Bears, they asked, like, why are you still working? And my
Right.
mom in her mind, like, I'm okay. Like, my son's got a degree. He plays a stupid game and people come
Right.
watch him and he makes a lot of money. Like, it's nothing to, and those kind of things made life easier for me. So, yes, family does help out a lot. And we've got to be cognizant, especially with our young kids, that we're not putting the stresses on them because they have
Right.
so much stress from the outside world. And I think my parents did a good job of keeping the main thing the main thing. And for us, sports was just and is always just a part of your life, not the whole, not the whole kid and caboodle.
Yeah. One thing in my industry, I've seen guys go through that transition of not having much money, right? During college. This is before NIL. Parents being really the leaders, and then the player becomes a millionaire, and then the parents give up that leadership role, and without without saying it, just by their actions, the, this kid who's 21, 22 years old is now the leader of the family.
Mm-hmm.
They're
And the
all looking at it
parents,
like, we made
Mm-hmm.
it.
yeah, yeah, the parents then put all this pressure on this young man to take over all the bills.
Yep.
They allow him to give direction and tell the family what to do, including the mom and dad. And that's just because of the money. And they don't actually realize that hurts the athlete more than helps him, because
Absolutely.
he's still a child in most cases, and he's still developing. And I'm talking about football players. That always ends up putting a ton of pressure on kids. I've seen athletes cry to me when they get cut, and one of the first things they say to me is, how am I going to take care of my family? I got to take care of my family, my parents, my brothers, my cousins. And in my head, I'm saying, dude, you're 25 years old. What are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
So for you, Wale, a lot of guys go through that mental period of depression when they get injured, and a lot of that comes from family. And for you, as I said earlier, you didn't have that, which helped you actually um, take your time and become successful as a NFL player. And now you're leading UBS's sports division. Your success all the way through, man. I just want to congratulate you, because from the beginning, it wasn't given to you. You earned it. A lot of
No,
guys.
I think Rob, you hit it right on the head of the parents taking a back seat to the athlete because now they are the breadwinner of the family. I think the problem, and it goes through all sports, it goes through entertainers, it goes through everybody, where money is the ultimate goal, and the values that the family is based on gets thrown out of the window. That is the ultimate destruction of family, in my opinion. And you
I
hit it on
agree.
the head. So I was on a panel a few weeks ago, and I heard someone talking to these prominent basketball players, and he said the same exact thing you're talking about, Robert, about the dynamic shifting once the contracts and the money gets into play. And he
Yeah.
also said that that is some of the worst, I think, behavior from a family standpoint that he's ever seen. It's just money can't lead the relationship, right? You've got to have mom and dad continuing to be the sounding board for the family, and the son or daughter, whoever's making the money, continues to look at that role as, I'm learning how to be an adult. Let's
Right.
surround ourselves with the right people. And what I think parents need to do is they need to stop being afraid of being um, X'd out or not included in the financial success.
Right.
Because when it's all said and done, all we have is family. And eventually, as our parents get older, that thing naturally happens, right? My mom and dad, my mom's 75, my dad's 81. Naturally now, they're looking to me to start making the decisions. Like, hey, listen, this is what I need you to do. Here's what I've taught you. But to do it as a 20-year-old,
Right. That's tough.
that's not fun.
Right.
And it's not sustainable.
Yeah, and a lot of it looks like culture, and like you said something earlier in your answer before you guys dived into this, was that your parents were educated. And so
Right.
that really makes a huge difference when you come from a family with parents who are educated, because
You hit it right on the head, Bailey.
they have the tools and they have the information. Like my parents weren't educated. My mom went to she never went past grade 2, and then I had a father and a stepfather who raised me since I was 6, and neither of which had been past grade 10. So it was a huge accomplishment in my household just to graduate high school.
Wow.
And so but no one's looking for me to be the athlete who's going to pull us all up, into educated status or change our financials. And so to see that kind of weight put on somebody who's still trying to figure out who the heck they are, and then having all that weight and responsibility put on them when all they want to do is just like sing the songs they like and hang out with their friends, but now they got to go to work every day and beat the pavement. And then even realizing, well, how late in life you realize what the job really looks like. Like going to a regular job, like what regular people do 9 to 5, what your parents were doing. Like that's like regular career stuff. And I don't know if you know, but Jamal Mashburn's my husband, and he's like out of the NBA. For him, he was very much, his mom taught him debits and credits, and there was no pressure for him either. So it was like, you can go and do this if you want, but I have a job and I'm holding down the house. And so it's like everybody's just now trying to teach people, but he never understood the concept of me working 9 to 5 or 9 to 9 sometimes, or 16-hour days sometimes with the foundation with Robert, because he's just like, I do 3 conference calls, I make big deals happen, and it's over. Congrats for you. I'm like, yeah, buddy, you sit at a different side of the table than I do. So
Right.
education really makes a big difference. And the financial education that I want to even go further back that you touched on with the UBS statement, the financial education is even more of an asset that doesn't even have to come from our actual Miami-Dade or public school systems. Where it needs to come from is athletes like you and Robert and Jamal, who are all handing it back down information-wise, like where the money is actually supposed to be put in which banks and how. And I don't know, Wale, if you remember, a long time ago we were with a group of people, but we were at a lunch and it was with like some financial folks who had like real money and skin in the game. And I didn't speak the whole lunch because I was so mesmerized. But that was the first time I'd been introduced to how people were putting their money. And this is me in the US in my 30s, never getting that information either. So it really changed the game, watching where my friends who had money and contracts and whatnot were putting their money, and then what they were doing. So I could start with my little pennies and then start,
Yep.
But it makes a big difference because money is a huge factor in the mental health space. Massive.
Oh, absolutely. And I think a lot of the reason why we have a ton of discussions. When I got to UBS, we had on Michelle Williams, who sings for Destiny's Child, and she struggles with mental health. And a lot of people were asking, like, why are we talking about mental health? And I said, listen, if we don't tackle the things that really matter to people and what affects them, then we're not going to be able to understand maybe their spending habits, maybe why someone wants to take their whole family to, I don't know, Bali every single year and spend hundreds of $1,000s. Maybe why that gentleman may want to take his friends to, Tootsie's, right, every week and spend a ton of money. Also, we've got to understand what makes people tick, how they feel, what makes them feel good. And maybe spending money may make them feel good. But if you do it in a destructive way, obviously now you're going to be broke, and your whole family and the people that are depending on you are going to fall flat. So the mental health discussion plays a major part when it comes to managing finances. And for all of those who think it's not, I'd be remiss to say that they're absolutely wrong. because money is tied to a lot of our core values, our core memories, our feelings, our emotions. A lot of times when you go shopping, sometimes it's emotional, right?
Right.
And so for me, I include the mental aspect when I'm trying to upskill our advisors on how to deal with athletes and entertainers. They have to have conversations with our clients about what's really happening around them. And the stocks and bonds and the managing the money, listen, that stuff is easy. Like we can do that in our sleep, right? But the thing of really getting to know who people are, understanding what ticks, what makes them tick, for me is the real home run in what I do here at UBS.
Well, you talk about the mental health discussion, and one thing I want to talk to you about uh, is really family and children. You have two young children, and I'm curious to what plans you have in mind that on how you're gonna talk to them about their mental health, right? They're coming to that age where I don't know if your kids have phones or have you guys given them phones, and what plans have you and your wife put in place to talk to them or discuss with them their mental health through this process of gaining phone and access to the internet?
Yeah, Rob. I mean, obviously, my kids have a daughter who is 9, going to be 10 in November, and I have a son who's
Yeah,
8.
that's that age when they ask for the phones.
Oh, my daughter is begging already, right? She thinks she's getting one for her birthday, for her 10th birthday. It's not happening. I don't think.
Right.
If I can get her to flip phone, maybe, but she's like, no thanks. But anyway, um, you know, the biggest struggle that I have with my kids, and especially my daughter, is I was raised really rough in a sense of dad never hugged me,
Right.
mom never kissed me. And like, did it affect me? I don't know, but I know it's made me where I'm kind of not as like touchy-feely as I would love to
Right.
be.
Right.
And and I'm a little harsh sometimes in how I talk, right? And I see
Most West Indian families are like that, by the way. Most
exactly.
Oh,
families
but
from the
he's not from
islands,
West India. He's
they're
probably from
like that.
another continent.
Yeah,
He's
exactly.
Right.
And I can see sometimes where I'm speaking to her and her eyes are starting to well up, and I'm like, "Oh my god, come on, what are you crying?" And then my wife's gotta like nudge me like, "Yo, bring it back, man. She's not a football player, right?" So my first struggle I have with my kids is myself, right? I've
Right.
got to understand that they're not they're not raised the way I was raised. No matter what no one says, I don't care. This younger generation are much softer than
Yes.
than we were. They
Yeah.
don't take criticism well. I used to take criticism as constructive, like, okay, I'm gonna prove to you, mom and dad, that I can do this. They almost want to
100%.
they just want to give up after you
Yeah.
criticize them or
They
ridicule
look
them
so
or
Yeah.
deflated.
they're deflated. Like
Yeah.
like
They
gosh.
think they think you're attacking them.
Yes. And I tell my daughter, I said, listen, you'll understand this as you continue to get older, but when I was a player, when my coach stopped talking to me, he gave up. That means he
Right.
was done with me. That means he had no hope that I was going to be a good player. But
Right.
the coaches that knew that I had potential and I was going to be amazing, they were on me harder than the other players because they saw the special gift in me and they didn't want me to lose that. So I'm finding that balance there for my kids. Like, how do I balance myself of knowing what I know is going to make them better to also making sure that I'm not too heavy-handed in my approach. But you also know, like some of the hardest and strongest trees in the world are places where it's always windy, right? Where the weather is harsh, because they've learned to grow and adapt to the environments that they're in.
I
And sometimes we feel like we make this thing too plush on our kids. When they leave my home, and there's peer pressure outside, or there's that boyfriend or that boy she really likes that's telling her to do something that she shouldn't be doing, I wanted at least to have some resolve to say, I wasn't raised that way,
Right.
and be able to push back without her feeling the pressure of um, the peer pressure, and then also the pressure of wanting to always feel happy all the time, right?
Right.
Sometimes these kids want to always be in a good mood. They always want to be happy. They always want to be in a great place. And if there's something that's a little disturbing to them,
They lose it.
they get deflated. So it's tough raising kids. I'm trying my best. I think they're living actually a really good life. But Rob, listen, man, like you already know, like, and you play a big role in that too, because Rob, you're always trying to like remind me to like, talk to my daughter, dig a little deeper when we go in these sessions
Right.
at these schools where um you'll say something like, it's not the ones that look like they're sad all the time. You need to always check on the ones that look like they're always happy too, right? Those are the ones
Yes.
hiding something sometimes, right?
Yes.
Those are
Yeah.
the ones who are putting on a mask to make everyone seem like everything is all great, but they're the ones who are actually struggling through something. So, Robert, in our journey together, he's actually helped a lot of us in thinking about how we raise our kids and make sure that we check up on them,
Yeah.
and do the right things and try to be good dads. And so I credit not only my own parents, but Robert, you've been doing a really good job of helping me with that.
Remember, Wale, remember
so
me and
amazing
you?
to witness between the two of you. Like, I'm just over here, like, I'm so happy this is being recorded.
Wale, remember you and I went to the Boys and Girls Club and we talked to these young kids, these middle schoolers, and I asked them daily, I asked them the question, how many of them are sad daily? And 90% of them raised their hand.
I was
And
so shocked.
it was shocking.
These kids,
Shocking. And
Robert asked these kids, and I'll say this. Robert said, okay, I just want to ask one question. How many of you feel like down or sad often, like almost every day? And almost the whole room of kids raised their hands. I was
and
so
yeah, I looked at the teachers. I said, you guys got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
The counselors or whatever, the Boys and Girl Club counselors. I said, you guys got a lot of work to do because, when I was growing up and I was that age, I didn't even know what sadness was. I didn't, we didn't have that. But again, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have social media. We didn't have a cell phone with us 24/7. I'm sure, a great amount of those kids sitting in the stands listening to Wale talk had cell phones in their hands. So it's just as well. It's a different time now, and you really have to have a grown-up conversation or similar about mental health with your child, even though you may think based on your life it's too early. It's not something I need to talk to them about. Yeah, you need to talk to them about it because they already know about it from the internet. They didn't learn from you as a parent. Me growing up, I learned from my parents, right? You learn from your parents and maybe the friends that you went outside and played with. But
If
these
they
kids
talk about it,
nowadays are learning.
if they
Yeah,
talk about
these
it,
kids nowadays are learning from people they don't even know on the phone, on social media. They don't know these people, but they're learning how to go about, you know, with their emotions and envious and all these different things and getting bullied. And yeah, you got to start early and you got to have a serious conversation every now and then with your child.
well, a couple key indicators just for all the parents out there and for the two that are on my show. Like for instance, Wale mentioned his upbringing with his family and mentioned how rough it was and like how his dad functioned versus how his mom functioned. But typically in an African family, that's the norm. That's pretty consistent throughout all the families, right? In other cultures, some are also similar. Asian cultures are reflectively similar. Any traditional, really highly traditional cultures. But then you notice down here, there's not a lot of tradition. There's a lot of culture, but not a lot of tradition. And so
Right.
what happens is hearing Wale say that remind me of something Jamal said when I first met him was that he couldn't believe I could name 100 emotions in less than 5 minutes because to him there were only five. And then you just said something that triggered that as well. And I'm like, holy crap. But I've said this before. The reason for that is the programming that we're all ingesting and watching. Girls are watching Disney princess movies and la 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 la, frolic in the field and clean the house, and the prince is coming to save you. And then the prince is in a war, in a battle, which could be attributed to football, and you're challenged to win. And then you win the trophy at the end, which in Disney princess movies is us, but for you guys, it's really an actual trophy. And then the two things don't align and mix. And so one of the things that has come out in recent years, I don't know how old this book is. I don't want to say too recent, but if you've heard of the book, The Five Love Languages, you've heard of it in the context of your spouse or your partner, right? If you apply these same principles to your kids, you can figure your kids out as well. You have to figure out what two predominantly strong love languages are for your kids. So for you, Wale, if your kids are physical touch, your 9-year-old daughter, and words of affirmation, when you're talking to her, disciplining her, showing her the ropes or teaching her stuff, you have to send it to her in those two languages. You have to touch her. You have to affirm her. If your other kids are acts of service, when you know what your kids are and you've diagnosed, I call it diagnosed according to the love languages, they're learning more emotional skills through you because of the way they're receiving the love from you. Because you might think you're loving them by buying them a gift, but if their love language isn't gifts, then they feel unloved completely. And so when people aren't identifying how their kids are and just assuming, hey, you're just a kid, do as I say, that's what they're receiving. And that's why all these kids would raise their hands, because they feel sad every day. One's feeling sad because they didn't get the toy they wanted. One's feeling sad because they didn't get the pat on the back they wanted. One's feeling sad because they didn't get the hug. One didn't hear, good job, little Johnny, and so on and so forth. And so when you talk about also checking on the people who look the happiest, I mean, everyone says this about me all the time. I am super happy, but I am sad at some point every day. At some point, especially with this Kennedy Kids Foundation and being the executive director, I'm dealing with other people's sadness and trying not to absorb it a lot of the times too, and feel sad with them when they're sad. But the people who are happiest get checked on the least because of how happy they look.
Exactly.
Right.
And so all that in a nutshell is all the things that everyone's trying to manage while keeping their relationships together, holding down a job, financially being responsible, and then dealing with all the wonders of the world. And by the way, Wale, don't get your kid a phone until she's 13.
Okay, great.
13 was my rule for all my kids. Like no phones till 13, no social media till 13, and no boys till 16.
No boys until after that. Anyway, but no.
Well, you won't make it that long, but you could try.
I know, trying. Of course. It's so funny. You make up a good point. You bring up a good point of, I know we're talking about our kids, but I also think from a man, right, like an alpha male, that also rings true, right? Like no one checks on the men, right? No one checks on, hey, Robert, how are you doing? Like before things happened in his life, I'm sure not many people checked on Robert. Like, hey, how are you doing? How's everything going on in your life, right? Until the something happens, then we want to start checking. Like, oh man, I should have been checking on you a little bit more. And I think for men, and here's where when I got married, we took, before you get married, you take those like marriage counseling courses.
Yeah.
A therapist comes in and makes sure that things are good. And we would have one-on-one sessions with the therapist. And I actually felt really good talking to the therapist and telling this person my feelings and letting them know how I felt and what, I was looking forward in life, and some of the things that I couldn't talk to anybody. I was able to like share this with this person who I felt didn't judge me. And I realized at that moment that I actually think that men should do more therapy. They should find, even if it's not someone who's professional, they should find an outlet to where you're able to express your feelings, express your emotions without anyone judging you, without anyone having to comment on the way you feel or believe. And I think that also adds one to our happiness, but I think that's a lot of the biggest issues, I think, when it comes to mental health, is that men, and I only can speak for a man because I'm only a man, but I'm sure that also on the women's side, but men, and especially men and that are alphas that lead their families, they don't have these outlets, right? They don't have, and that's why you also see, suicides with happy actors and athletes who overdose on drugs, because you're thinking like everything's all good, but behind the surface, no one wanted to really ask, hey, Wale, what's going on in your life? Like, are you
Right.
okay?
I
Everything
think
good?
men have the outlets. I think you've never been trained on where they are and how to use them to identify them. I think that's the real issue, because you guys have all been trained not to talk about stuff that's happening in your house, not to share when it's emotionally negative, and you only celebrate. That's the only thing we really see you guys do consistently. You also don't release stress through crying the way we do. And
Yeah.
so when you cry, you're releasing that energy that's pent up. But how do you get it out when you're not crying? You're angry. So one of your main fuels for the football field for all of you, the consistent thing with all of you sports athletes, is anger. You're all running off anger, anger about something different, or anger towards the person you're about to crush. Like it's the main emotion you're fueled off of, that you've been using as gasoline in your tank. And at the end of the day, mental maintenance is just important as your physical maintenance was to get you in that position that you got the contract for. But the therapy is going to actually help you work through all of the stuff and put you in a safe space if you don't have one at home to release. Like, some men aren't going to say, if they're highly responsible and traditional men, to their wives, hey, we're struggling this month. Can you cut back on your shopping? They're just going to let it keep happening until it explodes in their face and she's blowing everything, because you don't want to talk to her and tell her she has to cut back, because maybe you just don't want to hear her mouth.
I feel like we're getting a therapy session right now.
Right, exactly.
Because you hitting some points with me, girl. That whole anger thing. I mean, I played football angry, my whole entire life. So I know a lot about that. But I feel like I'm having a therapy session and I need to send you a check.
No, you don't need to send me nothing. I'm the one helping you out, remember?
Well,
So
that's what I'm saying. I think
yeah.
that's what I'm saying. You are my therapist right now.
Like, listen, I'm on it. I feel like I have it figured out. I've done a lot of therapy. I therapy a lot of other people. A lot of people tell me I should be a life coach, but at the end of the day, all I'm sharing with you is common sense. Well, I shouldn't say common sense, because it's based on experiences, but it's really
Right.
just being honest about the situation. At the end of the day, the reason why most men don't have access to their emotional toolbox is because the shit that they were given and programmed on had no emotions in it. It was just, win, go fight, win. Like, that's the chant. There's the least amount of words possible in it. It's the shortest phrase you can get out screaming. And like us, I talk for like an hour and you guys would not have anything to be able to say or butt in on if I really wanted to.
Right.
But that's because I was given those tools, and that's how it was always enveloped to me. But like, I didn't have a dad who hugged me. I didn't have a mom. I have a mom who says that I'm the one child of the six that taught her how to love. So it's like all of this stuff came through constantly being not afraid of failing, but also because I went through 22 different schools between kindergarten and 12th grade. So I've always practiced my introduction. Like, I've always practiced meeting new
Right.
people, and I've learned from so many different cultures that it's just after a while, you're just collectively like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. All right. So at the end of every show, we always ask our guests, what are 3 methods or options or techniques that you use to improve your mental attitude?
Okay, for me, number one, for sure, exercise. I have to get at least 45 minutes of cardio or workout every single day. Maybe Sundays I may rest, but I don't feel like, to me, to get my stress out, I have to exercise. That's number one. Number two, obviously, I grew up in church, so prayer and um, and self talk. I'll say to both. So prayer and self talk. Like, I talk myself off the ledge a lot. Like, I talk to myself like, "Hey, you got this. You can do this." And sometimes I just ask God for help and guidance and how I move, and that also gives me more time and pay uh, and peace, and how I you know get whatever is in front of me, what challenge is in front of me. I do that. So prayer, um, exercise, and then lastly, I have a strong male group of friends that that I've attached myself to, which Robert is one of those people who we have like minds, like experiences, and we just talk and we check up on each other. And there's no, I need this from you. I need this from you. This is the one place where I can go to where everyone's not judging me. They allow me to vent and, curse out whoever I need to curse out. And if they need to be the person that I'm acting like they're the person I'm cursing out, they'll take it. So it's good. I have a strong group of guy friends that we just shoot the breeze and talk about anything. So those are my three things.
I love those, and those are fabulous. Thank you so much for your time with us today. If you or anyone you know is struggling with mental health, please have them visit kennedykids.org for additional resources, or they can dial 911 if it's an emergency, and 988 you can text or dial and someone will respond to you. You can have a whole conversation with them and they will be there for you to talk to if you have no one else to talk to. And Wale, if anyone would like to follow up with you post-show, what is your Instagram handle, please?
Instagram handle is Wale Ogunleye, so it's WaleOgunleye. That's my Instagram handle. So yeah, holla at me.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. It was a great show.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Wale.
Thank you.
Gotta get mine, gotta weather the storm. Okay. One day we gon' get on.